What's up, nerds? I'm Mighty Fahl, and this is a question and answer video that I'm doing because I'm an idiot and I don't think about how horrible my fan base is before I make poor choices. And right off the rip, I'm already regretting this. I'm not going to answer this because between you and me, the FBI is already breathing down my neck. Okay, so obviously I have a thing for Vikings. I made the Icon and General channel theme around the time when a lot of announcements were coming out about Cyberpunk 2077, but before it was actually released. A big point of discussion at the time were how different cultures and ethnicities came together to be represented in the future in Cyberpunk 2077, specifically with all the factions including the Voodoo Boys and the Arasakas, etc, etc. And I thought to myself, what would a cyberpunk futuristic Viking look like? So I wanted a channel aesthetic and logo that would take the traditional Viking warrior tropes and give them sort of a futuristic cyberpunk flair. Almost all of my channel assets, with the exception of some emotes and my thumbnails, came from Rotting Jackal, by the way. Give him a look, dude's a pro. From a purely aesthetic standpoint, I like the fall and winter seasons. I know it's super stereotypical, the colors of the season, but honestly, if you live someplace where the colors really come out during the fall, it can be an absolutely beautiful season just to look at, just to watch nature doing its thing. It's really awesome. Winter also has a very cool aesthetic if you live somewhere where there's abundant snow. If you don't, then it's just kind of brown and dead. But even though those seasons are aesthetically pleasing, I am cold intolerant. I've lived in the southern US almost my entire life, and I've always been acclimated to the heat. And you never know it because I'm a super pasty pale Irish boy, but I love the sun and the warmth during the spring and especially summer months. If you live somewhere where the fall comes in with full range of colors, or you live in a winter wonderland during the winter time, then get in the Discord, link down in the comments below, and send me some pictures there. I'll enjoy them while I'm baking out in the sun. Kai, I'm doing well, and flattery will get you everywhere. While it is true that I'm a dad and I lean heavily into that since it's a big part of my life, a lot of people in the live streams, the Discord, and the general overall community here started calling me daddy. And since you can't tell anyone on the internet to stop doing something without them doing it a billion times more, I really had no choice but to lean into it. So lean into it I did, and here we are. Now go study how to be a better man so you won't disappoint me. Am I a good cook, and what's my favorite meal? Contrary to what Joey will say because of one isolated incident that he can't let go of because he's got a little too much of the tism, I can cook respectably well in the same sense that any dad worth his salt can cook respectably well. Contrary to popular belief, if you're a dad and you can't handle the rudimentary aspects of cooking, not only are you failing yourself as a man, but you're failing your children as a father. Get away from the red pill bro nonsense that says that only women belong in the kitchen, and pay attention. If you're a real man, you need to know how to cook. Because if you're a man and you can't, guess what? You have to rely on a woman. And a real man shouldn't have to rely on anyone but himself. As for my favorite food, it's something of a toss-up between a well-made steak and really well-done sushi. But these days, it doesn't really matter because mostly what I eat is anything that my wife cooks because she does all the cooking because I'm blessed. Look, Prussian, I know you're from Ohio, but being from Ohio has to stop being your main characteristic. That being said, I did a brief stint in Ohio. I lived there for about 1.5 to 2 years when I was about 12 to 14 years old. We lived about 20 miles away from the nearest old coal mining town, so for about 2 years during my childhood, I hardly saw any human beings except for my parents, and I only saw the barest minimum of them because they followed the time-honored tradition of child neglect. Little tidbits like these are probably starting to paint a pretty uncomfortable picture about me, huh? So that's a question that I could probably sit here talking about for a very long time. I'm gonna do my best to give the TLDR. I've trained in one form of martial art or another since I was probably about 15 years old, starting with Taekwondo, karate, other traditional arts, and moving on to Jiu-Jitsu once I discovered that. After studying Jiu-Jitsu for a while, I moved on to MMA and I fell in love. Not counting time off for injuries, life changes, and other events, I probably trained in MMA for a good 10 years. I never ended up going full pro because of taking time off for various life events, including but not limited to a plethora of broken bones, multiple concussions, and a torn ACL that sidelined me for over a year, and the timing for going fully pro never quite worked out. In total, my amateur MMA record was 7 wins and 2 losses, with 6 wins by submission, 1 win by decision, 1 loss by decision, and 1 loss by submission. My MMA career came to a pretty screeching halt as I was caught in Hurricane Michael down in Panama City, Florida in 2018. me. Suffice to say though, my entire life got reset. I started over from nothing. I had to relocate because I had to start my life over virtually from scratch. I had to focus on getting everything back into order instead of training and pursuing my dreams. And in the midst of all of that, I met my wife and started a new family. Things have been kind of an uphill struggle for me for years now, and although I'm doing fine now and so is my family, we had to put all of our time, focus, and attention on getting our feet under us again, and I had no real time to spare for training and fighting. What started as a prolonged and unavoidable break has settled into retirement for me. I don't have any real aspirations to getting back in the cage and going in for full fights. I'm an avid fan of almost any game FromSoft makes. I can't remember ever playing a FromSoft game that I didn't like, and most of them I'm borderline obsessed with. I would hazard to say that over the last 10 years or so, I've probably sunk more hours into FromSoft games than almost any other developer or franchise. I'm just going to say FromSoft games. They're all gems. They're all masterpieces to me. There's not any FromSoft games that have been made modernly that I don't think are worth everybody's time to play. And yes, I'm including Dark Souls 2 in that. Give it a break. It's a good game. You were just spoiled by Dark Souls 1, admit it. Another game that I feel like I absolutely have to put on the list is Outer Wilds. Now, I've only played Outer Wilds and its DLC all the way through once, but I would say that's probably pretty typical for people that play through Outer Wilds. As Outer Wild fans are very fond of saying, once you play it, it's done. I'm already saying too much, and this isn't an Outer Wilds video, although I do have an Outer Wild video over in the corner here. You should watch it. Suffice to say, it's an absolute masterpiece of gaming, and if you haven't played it already, what are you waiting for? Go play it. Lastly, I'm putting this on the list because it's a game that I have gone back to over and over and over again, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop. I step away from this game all the time. I take breaks, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. I've stepped away from it for over a year before, but inevitably, I always come home to Isaac. The Binding of Isaac will never be heralded as one of the greatest gaming accomplishments of all time, and more is the shame because it kind of is. As for making content on these games, I've already made a video on the Outer Wilds, and I don't have anything else to say about it right now. Maybe someday that'll change. FromSoft games always feel like games that I want to talk about, but when I look at them, I don't know that I really have anything much to say. And I especially don't know that I have anything to say that hasn't been said a billion times already. Unfortunately, the games that I love the most and am the most inspired by are also beloved and inspirational for just about every YouTube video game essayist on the planet. So really, what do I have to say? On that note, I don't know when, it's not in the works yet, but at some point, I do believe I have something to say about Elden Ring. Stay tuned for that. As for The Binding of Isaac, soon. Okay, yeah, the beard. No, I don't dye my beard. I know the hair on my head isn't red. I'm a freak of nature, super cool, right? The current iteration of my beard has been growing with some small trims and tidying up for probably about 3 years now. If you too want to grow a long, lustrous beard, my standard answer is always make sure you bathe your beard in the blood of your enemies. It does wonders. If you don't have any enemies or you're incapable of making them bleed, then use some beard oil. There's all kinds of oils out there. Generally try to get one with as little chemicals as possible, sticking as close to natural ingredients as you can. Both your hair, your beard, and your skin will thank you. Whatever's in your beard, oil, or tonic of choice, make sure you get one that's rich in vitamin E. That really helps encourage hair growth and strengthens your hair. Lastly, perhaps the most important ingredient in a full, healthy beard, believe in yourself. You can have the beard of your dreams. I believe in you. You should too. What the fuck is a kilometer? I started streaming to Twitch in about 2017. I streamed directly from my PlayStation 4 with no mic, no camera, playing Doom 2016. And I mostly streamed for several years, adding different equipment and upgrades to my stream as I went along, playing all kinds of different games, and building a small little community. I would post occasional highlight videos and stuff like that to YouTube, but I put barely any effort into it. I had no idea how to do any editing or make any kind of real functional video, and I had no aspirations to making anything more substantial than that. Again, the hurricane in 2018 happened and I lost all of my shit, so I took a long break from streaming and content creation. Almost 2 years after the hurricane, I finally got back to streaming and just kind of did that for a while as I built things back up, and eventually I started wanting to do more. After thinking about it for a while, I eventually settled on just making the kind of content that I like to watch, which is video essays about games. That ranges anywhere from reviews to talking about specific aspects of specific games or elements we find as common links throughout multiple games. It's a far cry from the abysmal launch of my YouTube channel, which pretty much consisted of Fortnite and Titanfall 2 highlights. The early days were rough, boys. If you think my content is bad now, the early days, holy sh! Look, this video is already getting long in the tooth, and if I do a setup tour, it's going to get even worse. So sometime later, I will do a full standalone video of a setup tour. And by sometime later, I mean when I do some actual cord and wire management, so you'll stop laughing at me. Also, Alien Isolation is loaded up on my PS5 and I'll be getting to it soon, but I might not be streaming it. Sorry. What the hell combination of questions is this? I'll set it up as soon as we get 50 dedicated people of legal age with credit cards willing to subscribe for $10.99 a month, and in return you'll get content such as Beard SMR, Dad Advice, tips on how to maximize your sex appeal as a short king, exclusive video of me and Joey Overdose cage fighting, which we will totally do if you give us enough money, advice on how to land and keep your very own big titty dark skinned tomboy waifu, and I have first-hand successful experience on this. Anyone who's seen my wife can tell you. As for what inspired me to become a YouTuber, we kind of covered the gist of that earlier, but aside from just wanting to branch into a new form of content creation, I just wanted to do something that was a little more creatively invested than going live and playing games. Ah yes, how did I and the waifu meet? The same way that any healthy, well-adapted couple in the modern age meets. The internet. On the internet. Duh. Jess and I met on a website dedicated to a mutual interest, and she made a comment on a post that I made. It was a nice enough comment that I decided to reach out and say, hey, I chopped my shot, we got to talking, and we pretty much hit it off immediately. That snowballed pretty rapidly into getting to know each other, becoming very close and connected, and moving forward into a more serious relationship. This was all post-hurricane when I was still putting my life back together, so it probably wasn't really the best time for me to be getting into a really serious relationship, but somehow it worked out. I'm going to tell you all right now. Don't do what we did. The speed with which we connected and started putting a more serious relationship together would in almost all cases be a major red flag. That said, despite both of us being in very difficult circumstances at the time in both of our lives, it worked out. After talking for about 8 months, we decided to take the next step and I moved her in with me. And we've been together ever since. Honestly, Jess and I both got lucky. We could have both been absolute psychopaths that ruined each other's lives. Or we could have both found out down the line that we're fundamentally incompatible and everything falls apart. Instead, somehow, despite all odds, this is the happiest and healthiest relationship that either of us have ever had. And it's funny because we're honestly very different people. Jess and I are not alike in many ways. We have vastly different life experiences and very different temperaments. I credit the fact that we work so well together because despite a wealth of differences, we have many shared values. We have shared values for what our family should look like, what our relationship should look like, and what we think are essential ethics for living a good life. We also have a massive emphasis in our relationship on honesty and communication. And even though we've had a wealth of challenges and struggles throughout our relationship, these things have been consistent and have kept us overall happy together and healthy. And you know, it doesn't hurt that she's hot. Why do I put up with you, sons? Probably because you hate your generation as much as I do. How did I feel when I found out I was a ginger? I don't know, probably the same way your mom felt when she found out I was a ginger. Excited, intrigued, and a little bit fearful. Guys, thank you for watching, and if you're one of the people that ask questions, thank you for posing the question so I could do this dumb video. If you asked a question and I didn't feature it in the video, it's because your question is stupid and you should feel stupid. That and I felt like this video was getting too long. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll make another one in the future. Also, get in the Discord linked in the comments below if you haven't already gotten in there. It's the best way of knowing what's going on with me, and we've got some pretty cool people in there too, although most of them are nut jobs. That's probably okay. You're probably a nut job too. Don't worry about it. Also, all these fine people over here are my Patreon and YouTube members. They support my content because although I do make a dime on YouTube, that's literally all I make, a dime, that's it. If you want to support my content, get early access to videos, get told about what I've got going on with upcoming production, as well as have your name up here in all its glory, check out links in the description below for YouTube and Patreon. Finally, over here, see that video? You should watch that video, and then you should watch all the rest of my videos. You should watch all the rest of my videos, or I will come and I will find you, and then I will give you lectures and life lessons and teach you how to actually be a better man or girl or whatever. And I know you need that in your life because your dad left for milk and ciggies a long time ago, and he's not coming back.